Like, subscribe and share fanfiction audiobook channel for next part. Chapter 94. Akainu was stunned for several seconds, and then he stopped struggling and asked in confusion why. We are obviously enemies. Before Akainu finished speaking, Uchiha Madara corrected him, because of the faction, it is understandable that you attacked me, but you have to remember one thing, you are not qualified to be my enemy. Because people with that kind of strength don't exist in this world. Uchiha Madara's arrogant words made Akainu clench his fists, unwilling to. I killed the 5 old men and the man behind the scenes of the world government. Someone has to clean up the mess in this world. And you are quite suitable. Uchiha Madara said lightly. Do you want us to join you and become the new world rulers? Vice Admiral Kizaru asked directly. Humph, what's the use of that? I have no interest in power. Uchiha Madara said disdainfully. As he spoke, he looked into the distance, and everyone looked over. After a whirlwind, a dragon appeared beside Uchiha Madara. Since you are not interested in power, why don't you give it to me? I have the confidence to make this world a peaceful place. Long grinned and volunteered. Monkey D. Dragon. Why are you here? Seeing the newcomer, Akainu asked in a deep voice. I heard from my subordinates that the 5 elders and Yuma were killed, so I wanted to come out and take advantage of it. Long openly admitted his plan. How about it, Uchiha Madara? Since you have no interest in power, leave it to me. I have revolutionary experience and I know what the civilians on the sea need. I will definitely make people in the world live a good life. Long said again. I am not interested in these, you can discuss it among yourselves. Uchiha Madara had no interest in power, he wanted to plant the sacred tree, absorb it, and become a true immortal. Uchiha Madara had just taken a few steps, looked to the side at his 3rd brother and another pirate who were looking at him anxiously, and said, these 2 will be my people from now on, I leave them to you. Don't worry. Long patted his chest and assured. Swoosh. Uchiha Madara soared into the sky. Long watched Uchiha Madara leave, his face almost broken with laughter. He didn't expect Uchiha Madara to be so easy to talk to. Just now he heard from his subordinates that Uchiha Madara broke him in 2 with just a few moves, which was very scary. Originally, he planned to come here to listen to how the strongest person in the world arranged the world so that he could respond, but he didn't expect to pick up a ready-made one. 3rd brother and another pirate couldn't believe it. They just helped with the filming and they became the strongest subordinates in the world. They were so excited that they were about to tremble. As for the agreement between 3rd brother and Buggy, he had long forgotten it. On the side of the square, the smile on Doflamingo's face had never disappeared, because the 5 elders died, I'm also died, and the world had changed dynasties. Excited, he wanted to go back immediately to tell his family the news, and he had planned to celebrate for a month. Hancock and Gecko Maria had already left when Whitebeard left, for fear of being liquidated later, so they didn't know what the result would be. On the ice of Marineford, ordinary Navy officers were cleaning up the battlefield. Aokiji made a table. 2 admirals and some vice admirals were here. Opposite them were Ryu, 3rd brother, and another pirate. They were discussing how to stabilize the world. Daddy! A heart-wrenching cry interrupted the meeting of several people. Everyone turned their heads and saw that Xiao Ali Bani was crying while holding the body of Kuma. The Navy stood beside her and watched. They had all heard what Kuma entrusted Uchiha Madara to do to the 7 warlords of the sea, so they did not dare to do anything to this supernova. That, Captain! Don't be sad. Bani's men saw Bani crying so sadly and tried to persuade her. View. Bani was still crying there. Captain, I'm sorry, another pirate shouted, because he saw many high-ranking Navy officers looking at this side, and was afraid of being arrested by the other side, so he wanted Bani to be quiet. You haven't lost your father, why are you asking me to mourn for you? Bani said this and with tears in her eyes she shouted to the others, go and kill his father for me, so that he can also feel the pain of losing his father. As soon as these words came out, the pirate who was trying to persuade her turned green in the face and hurriedly shouted, no, Captain Bani. Since you know you are afraid, then don't say such things. I am already very sad, why do you say such things? Bonnie shouted the last few words with tears in her eyes. The pirate didn't dare to say another word. The navy was still discussing how to reform, and the Whitebeard pirates had sailed a long way. Luffy was standing by the fence and chatting with Law on the boat next to him. Law originally wanted to come and take a look, but he ran into Whitebeard's ship, so he surfaced out of curiosity to inquire about the situation. When he knew the war was over, he followed them back. Luffy and Law were talking and laughing, and Luffy didn't know that Shanks was dead. Whitebeard and his gang looked at Luffy's back and sighed. They were really afraid that Ace's brother would know that Red Hair was dead. Will not be able to withstand the blow. At the same time, Uchiha Madara was flying in the sky, and the direction he was heading was the Red Earth continent. The reason for choosing there was because the area there was a little higher and suitable for planting. 10 minutes later, Uchiha Madara arrived here. He used his perception ability to explore. 10 kilometers away from here, there was a large group of wounded soldiers on the side. People wearing suits who were suspected to be from the world government were handcuffed. There were a lot of disabled people around those prisoners looking at them. Uchiha Madara sensed a familiar person from them, that was Sabo. The other party's whole body was burned to death, and he was gathering palm magic in his hands to heal himself. This is a good place, Uchiha Madara said, and put his hands together. Ten-tail suddenly appeared from his back. When it left Uchiha Madara's back, the ten-tail quickly grew larger. Boom! The huge body fell to the ground, and then Uchiha Madara left a mark. A big bulge appeared on the top of the ten-tail's head, and then the bulge opened like a petal, and a fleshy ball appeared on it. Boom! The Red Earth continent shook violently, and the ten-tails turned into a huge tree trunk that grew rapidly towards the sky. Ka-ka-ka! A large number of tree roots dug into the soil. The Revolutionary Army members 10 kilometers away felt the ground shaking and looked around. Look, what is that? The Revolutionary Army's Mori pointed to the distance and shouted in shock. Everyone looked towards the shore, where an extremely huge tree was constantly rushing up to the sky. The Revolutionary Army's crow used its crow clone to fly up to the sky to observe. After watching for more than 10 seconds, the huge tree trunk showed no sign of stopping and continued to rush up to the sky, reaching the clouds in a short while. Did you see what it was? Sabo raised his head from the ground and shouted to the crows in the sky. No. I wonder if it is the secret weapon of the celestial dragons. I will go and have a look. The crow said and flew forward. Wait. Sabo wanted to stop it, but he was still a step too slow. The crow had already flown away. At the same time, at the foot of the Red Earth continent, Figurand held the Den Den Mushi with an unpleasant look on his face. The spy who had just been undercover in the navy told him that Lord Im had been killed. Originally, he wanted to go back after seeing that Marijoa was gone, but he heard such bad news. Not only that, the spy also told him that Red Hair was killed by Uchiha Madara in Marineford. Damn Uchiha Madara! Figurand shouted angrily, his son was actually dead. The other 3 members of the Knights of God looked at the angry leader, not knowing how to comfort him. After being sad for a while, Figurand asked the Den Den Mushi in a hoarse voice, Fragrance, what did Shanks say before he died? He told Straw Hat Luffy to live well, and asked Whitebeard to take Straw Hat Luffy away. Hearing this, Figurand asked, is there anything else? No more, sir, the Navy replied respectfully. I understand. Figurand said and hung up the phone. Boss, what should we do? Now that Lord Im is dead, the power will probably end up in the hands of Ryu and Akainu. Before the dragon turtle finished speaking, Figurand Gallon interrupted and said, my son cares so much about that boy. I want to meet him and make plans. Figurand said, looking in the direction of Marineford, firmly, Uchiha Madara. I will definitely kill you and avenge my son. Chapter 95. The loud noise on the Red Earth continent mountain made the members of the Knights of God turn their heads to look. What is that? The dragon turtle asked in confusion. Looking at the towering tree trunk on the mountain, Figurand Garin frowned. He felt something was wrong. I guess it was the Revolutionary Army who did it. Let's leave here first. Figurand Garin called out, and several people stepped on the sea water and quickly left the Red Earth continent. At the same time, on the top of the mountain, the Revolutionary Army member Crow flew to the towering tree. "Little brat, get away, this is not the place for you to come." A deep voice came from below, and the crow flying in the air was surprised that he didn't sense anyone with his observation haki just now. The crow found Uchiha Madara next to the tree trunk and was stunned for a moment, because it was different from what he saw during the live broadcast. Uchiha Madara's expressionless face scared the crow, and the crow hurriedly said, "I have no ill intentions, I just came to take a look because of this big tree that suddenly grew, I will come now go." After saying that, the crow turned around and left, not daring to stay here any longer. After flying for a while, the crow was completely relieved when he saw that Uchiha Madara did not chase him. Returning to where the Revolutionary Army was, Sabo saw that the crow had a serious face, and asked curiously, "What's the situation over there?" "Uchiha Madara is over there, I think he must have built that tree too." When Crow said this, the members of the Revolutionary Army present were shocked. "Let's get out of here," Balo Betty said seriously. "Yes, we can't stay here any longer," Mori echoed. Everyone knew the horror of Uchiha Madara and didn't dare to stay here any longer. "Just now the leader called us to go to Marineford, let's go quickly," Mori added. Crow nodded, and directly used the crow clone, letting everyone sit on the crow and fly westward to Marineford. When the members of the Revolutionary Army arrived in Marineford, Long was still discussing with Akainu and the others, and even the escaped Kizaru came back. After receiving the report from the members of the scientific corps, Kizaru ran back shamelessly. The meeting lasted from day to late at night, and finally the charter was drawn up. The next day, the civilians on the sea were frightened, fearing that a terrible existence like Uchiha Madara would rule the sea. At noon, countless newsbirds threw newspapers in places where people were desperately. The newspapers said the end of the Celestial Dragons, the Revolutionary Army and the Navy will take over the sea, which made many civilians watching the live broadcast confused. The Sabayati Archipelago and the Celestial Dragons looked at the shackles in their hands in disbelief. Were they caught? Or were they caught by their own dogs? "You lowly humans, how dare you wear one in front of me? You're dead!" St. Charles yelled at the CP in a suit beside him. "Your era is over." CP adjusted his glasses and said indifferently. "Ha ha ha, this is really satisfying. You guys have come to this day too. This is retribution. It's better to kill them." On the street, countless civilians shouted excitedly, and some even threw bird eggs, rotten vegetable leaves and other objects at the Tianlong people. "Why, I spent so much resources to train you, why did you capture us? Even if the 5 elders were killed, you shouldn't do this to us, you bastard." Saint Wizward raised his hands to block the attacking bird eggs and angrily questioned CP. "I'm sorry, the news said that as long as we catch the Celestial Dragons, we can be exempted from the past guilt and continue to serve as CPS. I can't bear to give up the power, so I can only sacrifice you," the CP said with a little regret. This plan was also thought up by Long. After these Celestial Dragons are caught, these CPS will be dealt with. The CPS don't know that they have been deceived by Long. The countries with Celestial Dragons are playing scenes of CPS catching Celestial Dragons everywhere, and countless Celestial Dragons have been arrested. On the Navy side, Steel Bone Kong has also become a prisoner and was sent to the deep sea prison. In the Sabayati Archipelago, Xiaoqi blackmailed the bar. "What are you going to do?" Shaky asked Rayleigh, looking at Luffy. Luffy was eating a lot. "What else can I do? I can't let him know. I decided to take him to practice for 2 years. This is what I promised Xiang," Rayleigh said lightly. "Now the 5 elders are dead, and I'm is dead too. Luffy's father has become the person with the highest power, the world has changed, I don't think it's necessary," Xiaoqi said lightly while smoking a cigarette. "This is a man's promise. I will not go back on my word. Besides, I like this guy very much. It's also a good thing to make him stronger," Rayleigh replied. "It's up to you." Xiaoqi didn't intend to care about it, and left the bar after saying that. On the top of the Red Earth continent, Uchiha Madara looked at the sacred tree in front of him, and was excited, because after a day, the sacred tree finally reached maturity. Uchiha Madara flew to the trunk of the sacred tree and opened his arms. In an instant, the trunk of the sacred tree shrank rapidly like an hourglass and flowed into Uchiha Madara's body. Uchiha Madara only felt that he was getting stronger and stronger, and those energies filled his whole body. Not only that, Uchiha Madara also felt that there was an extra eye on his forehead. Uchiha Madara opened the forehead protector on his head, and the chakra Sharingan appeared. Finally, this day has come. The first immortal in the pirate world, an immortal being. Ha 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 ha. Uchiha Madara held up his forehead protector and laughed wildly. Congratulations! Suddenly, a voice came from a distance, followed by a whirlwind, and Long showed up. Uchiha Madara's smile disappeared. He was too excited and didn't notice someone coming. He looked at Long with some displeasure and asked in a deep voice, "What's the matter with you coming here? I heard from my subordinates that there is a towering tree here. I came to take a look after I finished my work. I have no other intentions." Long explained hurriedly. After Long finished speaking, he said, "It seems that the tree should be some kind of energy, and now it has been absorbed by you. I guess you should be stronger than before, right?" Uchiha Madara heard the meaning of the other party's words and said directly, "You don't have to make these tests. I am not interested in the so-called power. Of course, if you are blind and want to challenge me, I will not show mercy." Uchiha Madara said again. "Nothing, I'm just curious," Long said with cold sweat on his forehead. Seeing that the other party was scared, Uchiha Madara suddenly thought of the little girl and asked curiously, "By the way, where did Ginny go?" Chapter 96. Long was stunned by the question and said, "She's dead." Uchiha Madara originally wanted to deal with this person who broke his promise, but he didn't expect that he was dead. Long seemed to be lost in memory and murmured, "She was tortured to death." "Oh!" Uchiha Madara was a little surprised. "She told us about you and her. She refused because she was afraid that resurrecting you would make more people homeless. If I had known that your resurrection could change the world, I would have asked him to resurrect you no matter what." Long said this, sighed and said, "Hey, maybe this is the result of not keeping a promise. Because of chakra and ninjutsu, she was captured by the celestial dragons. In order to research those strange ninjutsu, the world government forced her to conduct inhumane experiments. As a result, the world government, which did not gain much, thought of using genetic inheritance to pass on those ninjutsu, so there was Joelle Bonnie, as Big Bear mentioned, that is, Ginny's daughter." Uchiha Madara nodded and said, "It seems that I don't need to look for her. Since she is dead, forget it. Brew brew brew." Just then, Long's phone rang. Long took out the Den Den Mushi and chose to answer it. "What's the matter, old man?" Long asked the Den Den Mushi. Garp's appearance appeared on the Den Den Mushi, and Garp's voice came, "The Navy has discovered that Luffy appeared in the Sabayati archipelago. Where are you? Don't you want to go and take a look?" I'm in the Red Earth continent and can't come for the time being," Long said, and asked curiously, "By the way, Luffy is?" "I don't know. I just heard from the Navy that he appeared there. There were many reporters taking pictures, and Pluto Rayleigh was also there. I'm heading there now. This time, I have to stop him from becoming a pirate no matter what." "Then you should go quickly. Now Sakazuki is the marshal. He will not be soft-hearted because of my son," Long said hurriedly. "If you want to go, just go. You don't have to worry about me," Uchiha Madara said, and soared into the sky. After flying for more than 10 meters, he suddenly remembered Shiki the Golden Lion, turned his head and said, "By the way, help me keep an eye on Shiki the Golden Lion. I want to know his whereabouts. I will come to you in a few days." Uchiha Madara left this sentence and disappeared from Long's sight. Seeing Uchiha Madara leave, Long controlled the power of Phoenix and rushed to the Sabayati archipelago. He wanted to stop his son from becoming a pirate. At the same time, Sabayati archipelago. Luffy raised his arm, and there were a few letters on it. This was his secret code to his companions. "Luffy, it should be almost time, if you stay any longer the Navy will be here. Rayleigh said anxiously. In order to help Luffy, Rayleigh chose to expose himself to arouse the topic this time. At this time, Rayleigh stood behind Luffy, and the reporters kept taking pictures, and the bolder ones wanted to interview him. Luffy also felt that it was almost time and nodded. The two of them walked quickly to the shore of the Sabayati archipelago, where a small boat had been prepared. Rayleigh planned to take Luffy to Nine Snake Island for training. They had just walked a few hundred meters when Rayleigh suddenly stopped and said with a serious face, "You're here so fast. Long time no see, Silbaz Rayleigh." Figurand Garin looked at the old man in front of him and greeted him. Rayleigh squinted his eyes and looked at the person who came. After seeing the other person's appearance clearly, he said in surprise, "It's you, Shank's father." After a brief shock, Rayleigh asked, "Why are you stopping us?" "I just want to meet this boy." While speaking, Figurand Garin looked at Luffy. "The user of the rubber fruit ability." "No. The user of the Nika fruit." "No wonder my son cares about you so much. It turns out that the hope he once said was you, Monk D. Luffy." Figurand looked at Luffy seriously and said. Hearing this, Rayleigh said helplessly, "I didn't expect you to know. I just found out about this today. I never paid attention to this little brat before." Figurand Garin explained. "Hey, uncle, what are you talking about?" Luffy asked, scratching his head in confusion. "Haha, nothing." Seeing the other party's stupidity, Figurand Garin smiled and replied. "Now that we've met, you can leave." Rayleigh said with a clean face, fearing that the other party would do something bad to Luffy. "You don't have to do this, although we were enemies before, now our forces have failed, and we will not attack you anymore." After saying this, Figurand Garin looked at Luffy and said, "We are here to help him." "Help him?" Rayleigh was puzzled. Figurand Garin frowned, as if he had noticed something, and hurriedly said, "This is not the place to talk, Garp is coming with the Navy, let's leave here first." Rayleigh was still thinking about the other party's purpose. When Luffy heard that his grandfather was coming, he was so scared that his face turned pale, and he hurriedly shouted, "Yes! Let's go! Can't let Grandpa catch me!" After Luffy finished speaking, he ran to the shore in a hurry, and the Knights of God and Rayleigh quickly followed. On the other side, Uchiha Madara was flying rapidly in the sky. His destination this time was Beehive Island, which was the most familiar place for him to come to this world. Uchiha Madara thought that his strength had reached the ceiling of this world, so he curiously asked the system, "I am invincible now, can you send me back to the modern world?" To be honest, Uchiha Madara missed his home on Blue Star. Now that he has become so powerful, he wants to go back and take a look. In his previous life, he was a novelist. Now that he has the ability, he wants to go back to make his family live a better life. Ding! The secondary world has not ended yet. There are still 2 years before the host can go to another world. The system prompted. The system prompt made Uchiha Madara excited. Originally, he just wanted to ask, but he didn't expect that he could really go to another world. "Do we have to wait another 2 years?" Uchiha Madara asked. "Yes, host." The system replied. Uchiha Madara thought for a moment and said, "Where did I go after those 2 years? Was it the blue planet or a higher level world?" No comment. The system's cold answer made Uchiha Madara a little annoyed. Unwilling to give up, Uchiha continued to ask questions, but the system refused to tell him after a long time. Later, the system might have been tired of asking questions, so it chose to play dead, which made Uchiha Madara very helpless. Uchiha Madara, who could not get any results, hurried to the Beehive Island. When he found an island with people below, he landed and took a walk. On the third day, countless civilians stood in front of the live broadcast screen where the war had been held, waiting. It was because they received a newspaper yesterday, asking them to watch the latest decision. At 8 o'clock, the live broadcast device finally had a picture. "Look, that's Monkey D. Dragon from the Revolutionary Army." A civilian who knew Dragon shouted. In the New World G1 Fortress, countless Navy gathered here to watch Dragon on the platform. At the forefront of the Navy was a live broadcast device, and the camera was aimed at Dragon. "I think everyone knows what happened recently," Long said to the camera. "The era of the celestial dragons is over, and there will be no more slaves in this world." Speaking of this, Long paused, as if giving the civilians in front of the screen time to digest the words. "Next, what I want to announce is, cancel the member states and establish the United Nations. Each country selects capable people to hold important positions in the United Nations to jointly manage the world. The United Nations has established 4 parliamentarians who have the ability to make decisions on major events. They are, the current Admiral of the Navy, Sakazuki." When Long said this, the Navy below burst into warm applause, and the camera was also aimed at the steps. Akainu, wearing the cloak of the Admiral of the Navy, walked up. "I am Sakazuki, I will serve as a counselor and Admiral of the Navy." Akainu introduced himself. The second member of the Parliament, the Navy staff, Vice Admiral Tsuru. "Vice Admiral." Tsuru walked up from the stage, and the audience burst into warm applause again. "The third counselor is me, and I am also the president." After Long introduced himself, he pointed down and said, "The fourth counselor is Gardeno." As Long finished speaking, Crocodile stared at the screen on an island in the Grand Line. Mr. 3, wearing a cape, holding a cane, and wearing gold-rimmed glasses, walked slowly to the stage like an old man. This style is almost the same as the 5 elders. "I am Gardeno, your world counselor." Crocodile heard the third brother's self-introduction, and Crocodile said unconvincedly, "How could it be that bastard?" Chapter 97. Crocodile gritted his teeth and clenched his fists. The other party was once his subordinate. Now he has become a powerful person and a counselor of the barrier. Crocodile can't accept it. On the other side, Sabayati Archipelago. Buggy and his group who followed Luffy to get off the ship here were covered tightly. They were watching the live broadcast. "What a joke!" Bucky rubbed his eyes as if he suspected that he had seen it wrong, and shouted in a shrill voice. "Damn it! If I had known earlier, I would have gone to help. I would have definitely become a member of parliament." "Yes, that's right." The pirates next to Buggy were jealous to death, and they also regretted it very much. At the same time, on an island in the New World, Uchiha Madara was standing in the square watching the live broadcast on the screen. Seeing the appearance of Gardeno on the screen, Uchiha Madara found it funny. Just as everyone was watching the live broadcast seriously, a civilian discovered Uchiha Madara standing behind and shouted in panic, "Everyone run, it's Uchiha Madara!" All the civilians and Navy officers present turned their heads at the same time to look at Uchiha Madara in casual clothes. Everyone showed horror on their faces. The brave ones ran for their lives, and the timid ones fell to the ground. "Wuvuwa, don't kill me!" One of the little girls cried loudly. "Mom! I want my mom!" The little girl screamed in fear. Uchiha Madara frowned. The Navy officers watching the live broadcast looked at each other nervously, then ran to Uchiha Madara and opened their arms to serve as a human wall for the civilians who did not escape. "What is this for?" Uchiha Madara was very upset and asked in a deep voice. "No. Don't hurt them, beg, please." One of the sailors plucked up his courage and stammered. "When did I say anything about hurting them? Which eye of yours saw me hurting them? Answer me!" Uchiha Madara asked loudly with anger in his heart. The crotch of the Navy being questioned was wet, and his legs were shaking like sieves. He couldn't say a word for a long time. Under the powerful aura of Uchiha Madara, the Navy seemed to have forgotten to breathe, and his lips trembled. "Sailors and civilians, don't be afraid. Uchiha Madara has made great contributions to this world. He was the one who solved the cancer of the celestial dragons. The world has also changed because of Uchiha Madara. Without the oppression of the celestial dragons, you should thank him." Just then, a colonel came from a distance, holding a loudspeaker and shouting anxiously. He had just chatted with a beautiful woman not far away, and found the scene chaotic, so he came to check. When he saw Uchiha Madara, he was scared. The colonel was afraid that these people would anger Uchiha Madara, so he hurriedly took a loudspeaker Den Den Mushi used to maintain order from the broadcasting equipment and shouted. After the Navy's explanation, only a few of the civilians present changed their eyes, and most of them still showed fear. The little girl cried even louder. Humph! Seeing this, Uchiha Madara snorted coldly, turned around and left. He didn't want to explain anything. After Uchiha Madara left, the colonel wiped the cold sweat from his forehead and breathed a sigh of relief. Then, he made a phone call to the Navy's G1 Fortress new headquarters to tell them about his encounter with Uchiha Madara. After the colonel explained what happened, the Navy's new chief of staff Aokiji asked he didn't do anything, right? No. He just left in anger. The colonel reported. Garp fought with the opponent twice, and the opponent let him go. Don't worry, as long as you don't provoke him, he won't do anything to you. Aokiji said, and then said, by the way, I have something to tell him, you go chase him immediately. Yes, the Admiral. The colonel replied a little nervously, and turned on his observation haki to sense it. He found that Uchiha Madara had not gone far, so he quickly chased after him. On the street, Uchiha was walking around. He had visited several islands in the past few days, which really opened his eyes. These islands were like every small country, and the customs and habits were mostly different. Master Madara! A voice came from behind Uchiha Madara. Uchiha Madara turned his head and looked at the other party with doubt. It's General Aokiji who wants to see you. The colonel ran to Uchiha Madara and said respectfully. Uchiha Madara looked down and saw that the other party was holding a Den Den Mushi. What's the matter? Uchiha Madara asked Den Den Mushi. You asked us to find out about Shiki. We have received news that he was last seen in Haining Road in the East China Sea. Aokiji's voice came. I understand. Uchiha Madara replied calmly. That. Aokiji's voice was drawn out, and he seemed a little hesitant. Just say what you want to say. Uchiha Madara said in a deep voice. Long intends to issue a ban on pirate activities. Shiki is your subordinate. I hope you can restrain him and stop him from committing crimes. I will. Uchiha Madara left a word and soared into the sky. Looking at Uchiha Madara's departing back, the colonel reacted after a few seconds and said to the Den Den Mushi, he's gone. The colonel thought for a while, then said, I didn't expect him to be so easy to talk to and agree to such a request. Are you surprised? Aokiji asked jokingly. Yes, a little. In the sky, Uchiha Madara flew quickly towards the East China Sea. Because of Shiki, he didn't plan to go to Beehive Island. He went to see Shiki first. At least he had such a loyal person. In his previous life, he watched anime and saw Luffy beat Shiki away. He didn't know how he was doing now. After flying for several hours, Uchiha Madara returned to the Grand Line from the New World. Just as Uchiha Madara was flying quickly, a person in front of him not far away from Uchiha Madara on the island, a fat man was struggling to run towards a giant bullhorn beetle. This man was Usopp, a member of the Straw Hat Pirates. He ran towards the bullhorn beetle, hoping to defeat this huge guy and leave here. Watch out! When Usopp rushed to the position of the horned ox, he grabbed the rubber on the slingshot with his right hand and charged it. Must kill! Before Usopp could finish his words, the sharp horn of the bullfrog arched towards Usopp. Wow! Usopp screamed and flew into the sky like a cannonball. Above the sky, Uchiha Madara, who was flying rapidly, asked in confusion, Human bomb attack. Chapter 98. Uchiha Madara stopped in the air, then sensed the situation below and understood the cause and effect, that is, the fat man was knocked away by the animals on the island below, not attacking him. Usopp. A worried voice came from below. Hearing this familiar name, Uchiha Madara turned his head and looked at the place where the other party fell. Bang! With a loud bang, Usopp fell to the ground, leaving a big hole in the ground. How miserable! Uchiha Madara said speechlessly. Below, Hercules, who was worried about Usopp, looked at the position where Usopp was flying and found Uchiha Madara in the sky. That is. Hercules is extremely solemn. Ga. In the forest, A huge strange bird mistook Uchiha Madara in the sky for food, shook its arms and flew towards Uchiha Madara, opened its mouth wide on the way, and wanted to swallow Uchiha Madara. Squeak, squeak, squeak. Uchiha Madara raised his right hand without looking back, and activated the Chidori style, which extended for dozens of meters like a laser. The flying strange bird was directly split into two by Uchiha Madara's Chidori style, and the trees and flowers on the ground also suffered from this move. Usopp, who fell from the sky to the ground, stared at the long thunder with wide eyes. When he saw that it was performed by one person, Usopp was shocked. Good, amazing. Usopp! Stop looking, go quickly, this man is the scary Uchiha Madara, don't let him find you. At this moment, Hercules came to Usopp and shouted anxiously. Uchiha Madara, who was about to leave, was a little confused after sensing the other party's words. Usopp struggled to get up from the ground, looked at Uchiha Madara in the sky and said excitedly. Is he Uchiha Madara? The legendary pirate, the Uchiha Madara that White Zetsu mentioned. As soon as Usopp said this, Uchiha Madara in the sky grasped the key point. The other party mentioned White Zetsu. Suddenly, Usopp felt his eyes blurred, and the man in the sky disappeared. Why is he gone? Usopp asked Helix in surprise. At this time, Helix's legs were shaking and he took a step back in fear. Usopp was afraid of him because he was looking at him. Just as he was wondering, a cold voice came from behind him. Kid. Did you mention White Zetsu just now? Usopp turned his head quickly and found that Uchiha had been standing behind him without him knowing when. I. Being questioned in such a rude tone, Usopp became nervous and his voice trembled. And you, why are you afraid of me? Uchiha Madara knew that Usopp was timid and planned to give him some time, so he asked the man with the insect mask opposite him in a deep voice. Because. Hercules was also not very courageous, speaking in a panic and stammering tone. My patience is limited, answer me. Uchiha Madara said in a louder voice. I am the crew member recruited after Roger, I've heard about you. After Hercules finished his fearful explanation, he quickly added, but I am no longer a member of Roger's pirate group, let me go. After hearing the other party's explanation, Uchiha Madara finally understood why the other party let Usopp escape when he saw him. Then, Uchiha Madara looked at Usopp and asked, do you know the whereabouts of White Zetsu? Usopp was so scared of being targeted by such a legendary pirate that his mind went blank. Seeing that Usopp was just afraid and didn't answer, Helix was afraid that Usopp would anger the other party and the two would die here, so he shouted anxiously, answer quickly, Usopp. I don't know. Usopp replied tremblingly. Uchiha Madara looked at him with a sidelong glance. Meeting his eyes, Usopp was sweating anxiously. Thinking of the diary, Usopp quickly opened his backpack, took out a book and handed it to Uchiha Madara with trembling hands. With just one glance, Uchiha Madara saw the words White Zetsu Diary. Uchiha Madara activated gravity, sucked the diary into his hand, and then began to read it. Lord Madara, after you died, I asked someone to try the impure world reincarnation. I was too stupid and kept making mistakes. You won't blame me, right? Master Madara. I met a man named Jesse on Luian Island. He deceived me. He ate 2 chakra seeds and destroyed 2 of your cells. It was really abominable. I didn't expect that he was so honest that he dared to deceive me. I almost fell into his hands. Madara-sama. This is the last chance, and I'm afraid those people will cheat me, so I chose the most ambitious crocodile. You won't blame me for letting you revive decades later, right? That's a big event, and I believe you will definitely like that scene, so I chose that time period. Seeing this, Uchiha Madara smiled and complained to himself, this guy. Then, Uchiha Madara continued to flip through the pages. The following is a record of Roger dying, Ginny being caught by the celestial dragons, and White Zetsu gloating over his misfortune. Madara-sama, I only study poop all day. When you are resurrected, you must tell me what poop means. Then there are several pages of White Zetsu recording the collection of poop. Until the last page, Madara-sama, Crocodile is here. I think it is not safe to leave the cells in the Impel Down Dam. I plan to retrieve them and lead him to the altar. Then you can be resurrected. See this, it stops. Where did you get this from? Uchiha Madara looked up at the frightened Usopp and asked. Yes, yes. Usopp was so nervous that he couldn't speak clearly. Don't be afraid, I won't do anything to you. Uchiha Madara said in a gentle tone. Yes, Zoro gave it to me. Usopp answered bravely. Do you know where he got it? Uchiha Madara asked. He found it in a cave in Arabas. Usopp hurriedly those who know have spoken out. Hearing this, Uchiha Madara once again looked down at the notebook. Judging from the weathering marks on the notebook, it should be several years old. In addition, White Zetsu has not appeared for several days since his resurrection, and judging from the content of the last message, White Zetsu must have been in trouble, and on the way to the city. At first, Uchiha Madara always treated White Zetsu as a tool. After seeing the above content, Uchiha Madara realized that he was wrong. White Zetsu is not a tool, but his most loyal subordinate. Uchiha Madara wants to resurrect him. System. How do I revive the White Zetsu I redeemed for the first time? Uchiha Madara asked the system in his mind. Ding. This depends on the host himself. The system only sells ordinary White Zetsu and cannot help the host revive that White Zetsu. The system prompted. Uchiha Madara heard what the system said and muttered to himself. Looks like I have to find a way myself. Having made up his mind, Uchiha Madara looked at Usopp and said, You've done me a favor this time. Tell me, what is your dream? I can help you realize it. Uchiha Madara asked directly. Usopp couldn't believe it when he heard it. Such a big shot wanted to help him. Thinking that he was blown to this island, Usopp dreamed of leaving. He mustered up the courage to say, Can you take me away from here? Uchiha Madara was stunned by this request. The other party's request was so simple. Uchiha Madara reacted and said in a low voice, Yes. Then, Uchiha Madara grabbed Usopp and flew into the sky. Hercules looked at Usopp who was taken away and was dumbfounded. He promised across his chest that he would train the other party, but he was taken away just like that? Thinking of his promise, Hercules gritted his teeth and ran towards the shore. He wanted to go out to sea to find Usopp, fulfill his promise, and train Usopp in another way. 2 hours later, Usopp stood on the busy street, holding the wall and vomiting constantly. Because the speed was too fast, Usopp couldn't stand it. Seeing the island with people, he asked Uchiha Madara to put her here. Ugh! Usopp vomited a pool of undigested food, and said with emotion, It feels faster than making a cannonball, I'm scared to death. In the sky, Uchiha Madara had already flown far away. After sensing Usopp's words, a smile appeared on his face. What Usopp didn't know was that he missed a chance to make a wish. If he asked Uchiha Madara for 8,000 subordinates, Uchiha Madara would also help him get them, and he was very loyal. One day later, Uchiha Madara stood in the cave he had cleared and looked at the bottle of feces in front of him. He was very speechless. It was just like a specimen placed there. Originally, this place had been buried by sand. Uchiha Madara only found the words on the stone tablet at the first altar, which was the kingdom altar. He guessed that it should not be here, but another altar, because it was said in the White Zetsu diary that White Zetsu collected feces, but not here. He who has watched the anime remembers very clearly that there are 2 altars in Alabasta. After half a day of searching and with the help of the 10 White Zetsu that were exchanged, they finally found this place and cleared out the buried sand. Uchiha Madara flew out of the cave, and the 10 White Zetsu below jumped up. Uchiha Madara looked at the White Zetsu and asked, If you want to push the castle, how would you get there? Of course, swim over there. One of the White Zetsu said directly. The other White Zetsu echoed yes, yes. Have you ever thought about taking a boat? Uchiha Madara continued to ask. It seems like we can swim faster than boats. Taking a boat is too troublesome. That's it. The White Zetsu replied. Uchiha Madara asked this question to analyze the problem of White Zetsu. Now he should understand it. Then, Uchiha Madara opened the system and directly exchanged 1,000 white Zetsu. Swish, 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 swish. Dense groups of white Zetsu appeared out of nowhere in the desert. Uchiha Madara cast an illusion on them and told them some simple things about this world. After doing all this, Uchiha Madara pointed in the direction of the deep-sea prison and ordered, "Your mission is to go from this direction to the deep-sea prison and find white Zetsu Afii for me." "Yes, Master Ban." Thousands of white Ju replied respectfully, then disappeared into the sand. Chapter 99. East China Sea, Haining Island. Uchiha Madara stood at a grave in silence. There were several timid villagers standing next to him. This was Shiki's grave. Originally, these villagers did not intend to tell Uchiha Madara, but they found out after Uchiha Madara used illusion. Golden Lion's men threatened these people not to spread the news of Golden Lion's death, otherwise they would be killed, so even if Golden Lion died, the outside world still didn't know. Uchiha Madara used Earth Escape, kicked the ground, and Golden Lion's coffin flew out. After opening it, Uchiha Madara took a bone and disappeared on the spot. Beehive Island. Once the base camp of rocks, it passed through Uchiha Madara, and now Wang Zhi has become the overlord here. On the street, Uchiha Madara walked slowly forward with an expressionless face. The pirates on both sides of the street looked at this terrible existence, sweating coldly, and did not dare to move rashly. Even if Uchiha Madara was just walking normally, the pressure on these people was stronger than meeting the Navy Admiral. At this time, in addition to the standard skull building on Beehive Island, a castle was built on the former square, and Wang Zhi was enjoying the service of beautiful women inside. Tap, 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 tap. A slow stream of footsteps came from outside, the sound was very rhythmic. Ha ha! Wang Zhi's laughter suddenly stopped, his brows furrowed, and while playing with the grapes, he shouted at the door, "Who is it? How dare you disturb my interest? Come on, drag him out to feed the fish." At the gate, the two pirates guarding the gate looked palely at Uchiha Madara who passed by. They did not dare to make a sound. Wang Zhi in the room was wondering why his men did not respond. Suddenly, a man who frightened him walked in from the passage outside. "Yes, it's you, Uchiha Madara." Wang Zhi was so frightened when he saw the person coming that he could not speak clearly. "It seems like you have had a comfortable life these years." Uchiha Madara glanced at the half-naked women around Wang Zhi. One of the women had tears on her face, and she looked like the unlucky one who was captured. When Wang Zhi heard this, his eyes rolled, and he laughed with embarrassment on his face and said, "That, Captain, you are finally back. I have never left all these years to help you defend Honeycomb Island. Now that you are here, it is time to return the property to its original owner." After Wang Zhi finished speaking, he saw that Uchiha Madara did not move, so he carefully stood up and walked down from the throne. Looking at Wang Zhi with a guilty look on his face, Uchiha Madara said lightly, "Originally, I didn't plan to kill you, but who can blame me for not having any good materials to resurrect Shiki? I think you are pretty good." As soon as these words came out, cold sweat ran down Wang Zhi's forehead. He couldn't muster the courage to resist. Uchiha Madara's strength was proven in the Battle of Marineford. Even 10,000 of them could not beat him. In order to survive, Wang Zhi hurriedly said, "Captain, I had no choice but to betray you at the beginning. My strength was too weak. I don't want to die, Captain. Since I didn't oppose you at the time, please let me go." Not only did Wang Zhi's words not work, the next second, he felt a huge suction force, and then Wang Zhi felt that he could not move. His whole body was bound with red chains and was trapped tightly. "Captain!" Wang Zhi panicked and shouted anxiously. Uchiha Madara didn't care about him and cut Wang Zhi's arm with his hand. A lot of blood flowed from Wang Zhi's arm to the ground. Uchiha Madara used Wang Zhi's blood to carve. The rune of the impure world transformation appeared under Wang Zhi. Looking at the evil pattern on the ground, Wang Zhi shouted in despair, "No! Captain! Too noisy!" Uchiha Madara said in a low voice, and waved the magnetic seal, sticking it on Wang Zhi's mouth. "Woo woo woo!" Wang Zhi's eyes widened, his face full of resistance, and he kept struggling. Uchiha Madara took out a syringe of cell extraction reagent and squeezed the ingredients inside onto the seal. Uchiha Madara formed a seal with his hands and slapped the ground immortality. The next second, countless grey and white scraps of paper crawled all over Wang Zhi's feet. Wang Zhi's eyes were full of bloodshot, and his face had an expression of great pain. Gradually, the scraps of paper crawled all over Wang Zhi's body, wrapping Wang Zhi like a dumpling. Uchiha Madara removed the Vajra seal of the Uzumaki clan, and then Uchiha Madara formed a mark. The scraps of paper on Wang Zhi's body fell off, and Shiki's appearance was revealed. Shiki knelt on the ground and slowly opened his eyes. Is this hell? Why is it different from what I imagined? Shiji looked around, his face full of confusion. The captain is here too. Shiki discovered the Uchiha squad right opposite. Suddenly, Shiki seemed to have discovered something, and quickly turned his head to look at the beauties who were huddled in the corner, too frightened to make a sound. Hey, there are still beauties. Ha ha ha. Shiki first laughed, then looked at Uchiha Madara and said with emotion, it seems that the captain is living well in another world. I didn't expect you to be defeated by Straw Hat Luffy. This is really embarrassing. Uchiha Madara looked at the elderly Shiki and said in a low voice. Captain, how do you know? Shiji was puzzled. The captain was clearly dead in front of him. Gradually, Shiji felt something was wrong. He felt that the captain on the other side was alive. In order to confirm his guess, Shiji turned his head and looked at the beauties. They seemed to be alive. Captain, are you resurrected? Shiki was a little surprised. It seems that you are not completely senile yet. Uchiha Madara said with some disdain. Then He remembered that he was seriously injured and died, but now he appeared here. Shiji looked down at his hands, which were covered with countless cracks. I resurrected you, the impure world reincarnation technique. After Uchiha Madara explained, he used his illusion ability directly on Shiki, and told Shiki the effect of the impure world reincarnation technique and what happened next. Shiki opened his eyes wide and gradually came back to his senses. Shiki seemed to have missed out on hundreds of millions of dollars, and he slapped his thigh and said, what a fool, Captain! You can rule the world with your strength, why did you give it to Long? If you really don't want to dominate the world, you can let me rule it. I dream of dominating the world. Uchiha Madara looked at Shiki and interrupted, what's the use of giving it to you? With your strength, any pirate with tens of millions can beat you. What's the use of easily robbing you at that time? Shiki heard this and said unconvinced, who said that? I am the Golden Lion, a pirate as famous as Whitebeard. Then why were you defeated by a small character like Straw Hat Luffy? Uchiha Madara pretended to be puzzled and asked a soul-searching question. Shiki was speechless for a moment, and after thinking for a while, he defended himself. It was the ore that pierced my head and affected my strength. If it were before, I could defeat him with just one finger. Ha ha. Uchiha laughed disdainfully and said, the past is the past, and the present is the present. Shiki, why don't you compare yourself with the other person when you were just born? If you are weak, practice more. If you can't beat them, don't make excuses. Chapter 100. Boom! A shocking explosion occurred on the Beehive Island. Shiki manipulated the float fruit to control a pirate ship to take off, with a large group of rescued women standing on the ship. Shiki couldn't understand how Uchiha Madara became a good person. Not only did he kill these pirates, but he also asked him to take these women away with him. There were tens of thousands of pirates below, which was a good fighting force. They were killed in just one blow. Shiki felt it was a waste. Facing Shiki's puzzled eyes, Uchiha Madara explained, originally, I thought this would be my home, but after I came here, I just felt strange, so there was no need for it to exist. This was also an excuse made by Uchiha Madara, just because those women awakened Uchiha Madara's conscience in his previous life. He felt that this place was too dirty, so he destroyed it. The rescued women on the side trembled when they heard this. They were destroyed just because they felt strange. It was even more terrible than pirates. That's tens of thousands of soldiers, Captain. Shiki was in great pain. He just saw many pirates wanting to follow Uchiha Spot, and it was destroyed. They have no intention of sharing my hardships and only join me because they see how strong I am. What's the use of having such subordinates? With such a force, can he defeat the 4 emperors? Even if you are a loser who was defeated by Straw Hat Luffy, they will not be your opponent when they are combined. After saying this, Shiki said awkwardly, Captain, can you please stop talking about this? Uchiha Madara nodded seriously and said, Don't worry, I won't talk about your defeat by Straw Hat Luffy anymore. Shiki. One day later. A dilapidated pirate ship stopped on the sea, looking at the Beehive Island in front of it. Only a small part of the island was left, and was stunned. These people were navy disguised as pirates. After Uchiha Madara arrived here, the spy called the navy headquarters, but later the headquarters could not be contacted, so they sent people to check. What's going on? Akainu's voice came from Den Den Mushi. Marshal Akainu. It seems that Beehive Island was destroyed by a single blow. Only a small part of the island is left, and it is bare. The navy said solemnly. It should be Uchiha Madara who did it, you guys should return to the team. Akainu's voice was full of excitement, and he was so happy that he directly announced that their undercover career was over ahead of schedule. At the same time, in the sky of the New World, Shiki stood on the bow and admired the beautiful scenery below, while controlling the ship to fly to Alabasta. Shiki, whose body was transformed by the impure world reincarnation, felt that he had returned to the time before he was injured. Except for a slight weakness in his body, everything else was fine. The only thing that made him feel uncomfortable was that he had no feeling in his body, which made Shiki, who liked to smoke cigars, feel very uncomfortable. Uchiha Madara was sitting on a chair on the deck, communicating with the system Uchiha. Madara never felt a sense of belonging to the pirate world, and he was eager to return to the modern world. The system was unmoved at first, but later Uchiha Madara proposed to use the exchange points to exchange for the qualification to travel through time, which made the system relent. Uchiha Madara just wanted to curse the system, saying that it should have just asked for money earlier, but it had to put it there. The system was very shameless, and asked for all of Uchiha Madara's exchange points, 48,729, and could only let Uchiha Madara go back for 1 year. Uchiha Madara started with a price of 2,000, and after a period of bargaining, the system reduced it to 10,000. Is 8,000 okay? Uchiha Madara asked. There is no room for negotiation, host, 10,000 cannot be any lower. If you don't want to, then forget it. And the world hasn't ended yet. If you really don't want to give it, you can wait. After it's over, you have a year to return to the main world to recuperate, and then go to another world. The system prompts this and then falls silent. Captain. I seem to have found an acquaintance. Uchiha Madara was planning to go back, and Shiki's shout interrupted his thoughts. Uchiha Madara stood up, walked in front of Shiki, and activated his perception ability in the direction he was looking. Below was an island with flames shooting into the sky, countless houses collapsed, and dozens of corpses on the ground. Hundreds of civilians stood together, and the old man in the lead handed a basket full of Baileys to Stussy with trembling hands. Stussy took the basket handed by an old man and laughed with great pride. Ha ha ha, you guys know what's good for you. I'll let you off this time. Son, let's go. Buggy took a greedy look at the Bailey and treasure in the basket, waved his hand and shouted, then turned and left. Weevil turned around with a pheasant in his hand and followed. Uchiha Madara placed his perception ability on Weevil and said to himself, good material. Then, Uchiha Madara jumped off the boat. This time I can go out and gamble for a few days, hee hee. Stussy said excitedly while holding a dozen Baileys. Huh? Suddenly, Stussy noticed that there seemed to be someone in front of him. The moment he looked up, he met Uchiha Madara's gaze. You, who are you? Stussy stared at the person who appeared in front of him with his eyes wide open. Mom, what's wrong with you? Vabel asked curiously. Long time no see, Captain Uchiha Madara. Jin was still calm, because she felt that she had no hatred with Uchiha Madara, so she greeted him. Is that guy Whitebeard's biological son? Uchiha Madara asked directly. He was curious in his previous life. If he was really Whitebeard's son, he would turn around and leave immediately. Stussy glanced at Weeble and said to him, "You go to the side for a while, I have something to say to the captain." "Yes, Mom." Weeble replied and left alone. After he left, Stussy said lightly, "Captain, I won't hide it from you. He was cloned from my genes and Whitebeard's, but in the outside world, I claim that he is Whitebeard's son. Is this why the captain came here?" Stussy asked doubtfully. "Since he is not my biological child, that's good. Otherwise, for Whitebeard's sake, I might not be able to do it." Uchiha Madara's words made Stussy alert and asked, "Captain, what do you want to do?" With a whoosh, Uchiha Madara instantly disappeared in front of Stussy. The sound of a lot of chains made Stussy turn his head and see his son being trapped like a dumpling by the red iron chains. "Son!" Stussy yelled. "Mom!" Wilbur's face was full of panic. He couldn't understand why he was locked up all of a sudden and couldn't get free. "Captain, what are you doing?" Stussy ran towards Wilbur and asked loudly. Swoosh! Uchiha Madara grabbed Wilbur and soared into the sky. "My son!" Seeing that Uchiha Madara did not answer him and took his son away, Stussy shouted in despair. "Finally, I'll give you a piece of advice. Find a good place to retire. You're carrying this dangerous guy with you, it will bring you death." Uchiha Madara's voice came from the sky. "Long time no see, Stussy. I didn't expect you've aged so much." Ski said from above. "Bastard, give my son back to me. He is my life." Uchiha Madara. A loud shout came from above, and Uchiha Madara in the sky activated the magnetic ninjutsu, and a large amount of gold powder emerged from the ground below. "Let's go!" Uchiha Madara called out. Shiki saw that the old woman ignored him and angrily controlled the spaceship to leave. Stussy saw the gold floating in the sky and his breathing became rapid. As for Weeble, he had already forgotten about him. "Gold! Gold! All mine, ha 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 ha!" Stussy's loud laughter came from below, and Uchiha Madara murmured in his heart, "It's just as I expected." Uchiha Madara glanced at Weeble, who was tied up and lying on the deck. In Stussy's heart, this man was just a tool, just like how he treated White Zetsu. A few days later, Uchiha Madara and Golden Lion arrived in Alabasta. On their spaceship followed two women whose families were killed by pirates. The two had nowhere to go, so they followed Golden Lion. Uchiha Madara used ninjutsu to make a lot of gold sand and bought the casino in Yuyan as a temporary place to stay. After hearing that Uchiha Madara had come to Alabasta, Cobra brought Wei to Yuyan and respectfully claimed to Uchiha Madara that he could find him if he needed anything, and left Wei as a diplomat. Uchiha Madara could see at a glance what politicians like Obra were thinking. For Wei, who wanted to curry favor with him and was determined to make some achievements, Uchiha Madara sent her to Shiki, and Wei became the lobby manager of the casino. Uchiha Madara's whereabouts were soon known to the top leaders of the United Nations and the admirals of the Navy. They couldn't figure out what Uchiha Madara was going to do. How could he do it? He actually started a casino. Brother 3 and the current Union Logistics Minister Sunny, the pirate who was responsible for filming Uchiha Madara, came to meet Uchiha Madara in person. On the other side, 9 Snake Island. Rayleigh, Figaland Gallon and others also received news from the spy. The Knights of God were very satisfied with Luffy and Law, who were training in front. Originally, they only planned to train Luffy, but after Law came, he helped Luffy to heal the wounds caused by training, which made them realize that this man was a person with the ability of surgery fruit. In order to avenge his son, Figaland asked Law to train with him. Law's dream was to defeat Mingo, so of course he did not refuse and trained with Luffy. Another half a month passed. On this day, Uchiha Madara stood at the window and looked ahead. He was about to give up on White Zetsu and Luffy. He decided that in the last week, if he really couldn't find it, he would go to the modern world first and let the White Zetsu continue to look for it. At this moment, a group of White Zetsu came running from a distance and shouted excitedly, "Master Madara, we found it! When the white Zetsu approached the building, one of them jumped up, holding a green. Lord Madara, you don't know that thousands of us launched a carpet search in the sea, and it turned out that this hair grew together with moss. It was because the brothers in front were careless that the ones behind discovered it. We checked it and it is the same as our hair. Hearing this, Uchiha Madara praised, well done. Thank you for your hard work, White Zetsu. Uchiha Madara took the hair from White Zetsu's hand while speaking, then turned back to the room and began to extract cells from White Zetsu's hair. A day later, Weevil became White Zetsu's sacrifice, and White Zetsu was resurrected under Uchiha Madara's impure world. After the resurrection, White Zetsu was moved to death, because he finally met Lord Madara, and Lord Madara sent thousands of White Zetsu to find him in order to resurrect him, and he was resurrected with hair. White Zetsu felt that the decades of waiting were all worth it. Then, Uchiha Madara took Shiki and White Zetsu to the casino dungeon. There were several pirates who came to challenge Uchiha Madara during this period. Uchiha Madara fed the other party chakra seeds, and took off the samsara eye and installed it in the pirates' eyes. Then he used illusion to control the other party and launched the samsara natural technique. Shiki, who was transformed from the impure world to the real resurrection, was excited. White Zetsu Afei clenched his fists and said excitedly, Captain, I feel like I can kill a cow now. Of course, I used a monster-level physique to give you as a container. You now have the power of Whitebeard when he was young. Uchiha Madara said to Afei. Alas, if I had known earlier I should have asked the captain to find a better body for me. Wang Zhi is too weak. Shiki said with some regret. When Shiki said this, he glanced at Uchiha Madara, and seeing that the captain looked a little unhappy, he quickly changed the subject and said, in fact, I am already satisfied to be able to survive and enjoy life. But then again, Captain, are you really leaving? Shiki asked curiously. Uchiha Madara told him that after resurrecting White Zetsu, he would go to a deserted place to train for a year and come back after a year. Uchiha Madara did not plan to take Shiki to the modern era because he was afraid that this guy would mess around. I have a move that requires time to practice. I'm leaving now, and you'd better not continue to be a pirate. If Akainu kills you, I won't resurrect you. How is it possible? How could that little brat Akainu beat me? Shiki was so proud that he retorted. You can try it. Leaving behind a word, Uchiha Madara waved at Baiju, and the two left the basement. Shiki, who was standing in place, was simulating the battle scene with Akainu in his mind, and found that he seemed to be unable to do it. It must be because of this body. Yes. It must be. Shiki talked to himself and found an excuse for himself. In the desert of Alabasta, Uchiha Madara glanced at Afei beside him and shouted directly, let's merge. Okay, Mr. Ban. Afei shouted respectfully and wrapped Uchiha Ban with his ability. System, White Zetsu is not a human, he is just my equipment, you can only deduct 10,000 from me, teleport. Uchiha Madara, who was ready, shouted to the system. There is really nothing we can do about you. It's difficult to make more money from you. The system said helplessly. Originally, the system saw that Uchiha Madara was going to take White Zetsu back to the modern era, and directly said that it would cost 20,000. As a result, Uchiha Madara saw through the system's plan to make more money, and directly came up with this. As the system's voice fell, a black portal appeared in front of Uchiha Madara. Uchiha Madara took a last look at the desert behind him and walked in. Uchiha Madara only felt a black screen in front of his eyes, and then it became bright. Uchiha Madara looked ahead with confusion on his face. It was because the front was full of devastation, as if it had been baptized by artillery shells. There was a huge pit of 100 meters, and Uchiha Madara was standing in the pit. Then, Uchiha Madara used his perception energy to sense the surroundings. The surrounding buildings collapsed, and there were broken bricks and tiles in a large number of terraces. The ones farther away were okay, with only rotten walls. System, didn't you say the coordinates sent here are my home? This is obviously not the place. Uchiha Madara asked in confusion. Host. This is exactly your former home. The system reminded. What? Uchiha Madara was shocked.